Good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the state of obesity. I'm Dr. Wickham Simonds from Dr. Simonds Metabolics and Weight Loss. Many of you have seen me before on previous AMA shows. Um, Tonight, I'm launching a new series called State of Obesity, and I've been treating obesity for 2 decades now, and so uh, this is kind of something I've been wanting to do. So this new series is going to come straight from my desk. It's going to come to your phone, your tablet, your computer, and I'm going to discuss things that you need to know and the information you need to be armed with to understand what's going on with really the most devastating and prevalent disease in America today, and that is obesity. So I want to start by covering some basic groundwork, some questions that a lot of people ask. I think will help us establish a foundation on which to build the conversation from. And then we've collected a series of questions from patients that like me to answer them tonight during the broadcast. And we've got a special guest here. And many of you know Michelle Kennedy, who appears with me on the Monday Ask Me Anything Facebook Live event. She's here, and she's going to be a part of that. And so it's going to be an exciting show tonight. And then look, after tonight, there'll be other shows. Maybe we won't always do them in this formalized setting, but my goal is to generate the content that you can access at any time to keep you really on the cutting edge of everything related to this disease. So, without any further ado, let's start with the first basic question of what is obesity? I can get long-winded about this stuff. It seems like a simple question, and most people think about it in terms of just weight. But I want you to think about it as a chronic disease process, chronic relapsing disease process that as long as you live in this country, you'll be managing that. I always say it until you hit the grave. So the finish line's the grave with this disease process. Now, so how does this disease manifest itself? Well, we think about it in terms of weight, but really it's about body fat, about excess body fat. Think of your body fat as an organ. Obesity is a disease characterized by this excess body fat that can have two kind of main features that you have to know about. The first is excess body fat with metabolic dysfunction. This is where the diabetes, the lipid problems, the hypertension, those sort of metabolic problems come from. So obesity is like the conductor of the orchestra, and the orchestra players are like your other organ systems, and things get out of whack because the conductor's sending all the wrong message. That's the metabolic function of obesity. Obesity is also characterized by a second major issue, and that is physical forces. So if you put too much body fat, too much weight on your joints, for example, this has a physical negative effect on your joints. And so there's the metabolic consequences that define this disease, and then there are the physical consequences, and it's both of those things. So obesity is a chronic relapsing disease with metabolic dysfunction and physical forces that negatively affect your musculoskeletal system. That's the way to think about it. So again, I'm Dr. Wickham Simonds. Tonight's show is The State of Obesity. It's a new series I'm doing to educate you about a very prevalent and dangerous disease facing America today. That's obesity. And we're going to have more shows like this. Whether they're live or not, you'll always have access to this content on our website. It's a good way to stay informed about obesity and really be on the cutting edge. So the second question I got, and thanks for joining, by the way. We really appreciate it. Is how many people die from the effects of obesity each year? And I don't think we can put a number on that. So I'm not going to say, well, X number of hundreds of thousands die. I think the way to think about it is obesity is a root cause of many other health problems, which then cause you to die. And it's impossible to total that number up because you have to consider things like diabetes, heart disease, and strokes, and those sorts of things that can be caused by obesity. And so it's not like you can just say, well, people died because they had excess body fat, and here's the number. It's not that simple. The bottom line is it is responsible for a lot of death in this country that happens really prematurely. It should be something that happens later on in someone's life, but the outworkings, this disease of obesity can take you to the grave early, and it's a very, very common problem. It's probably the most common cause when you think about it that way of death in our country today. I don't want to split hairs with those of you in the academic who have different definitions, but that's the way that I see it. So, all right. The Hope Dennis, I want to thank you for joining. She's excited to be here and watching. It is so cool. Hey, Hope, I see your picture there now. That's pretty cool. All right. What is the root cause of obesity in America? This is another question I think people want me to say, and they want a very specific answer like, hey, grandma made too many brownies, and it's grandma's brownie that actually makes everyone obese. Okay, well, that'd be real simple if that was the case, because we could all I could lock grandma up and say, well, no more brownies and we'll all be okay, right? But it's not that simple. The answer to that question is there's not a singular root cause to obesity. It's a complex problem, a very complex problem. And we're starting to figure a little bit out about it as doctors and scientists, but there's a lot more that we don't know. I think the main message there is that it's complex and it's not easy. So just telling someone to diet and exercise to fix this complex medical problem is really not a good answer. It's something that has to be dealt with in a much more detailed way. And we'll be talking about those things as we go forward. Okay, there's genetics, there's environmental factors, there's all the food supply, there's the different way that we structure our society, so on and so forth. There's medications that can make you gain weight and so forth and be a big contributor in this process. So it really is a very complex thing, and it needs to be addressed by medical professionals who know what they're doing. And this is my life's work. It's been my life's work for the last 2 decades. All right. So the next kind of foundational question is, what is the medical community doing about obesity? And in my opinion, we're not doing very much. Okay? We're not doing enough. I think that when you look at the number of people who go to their primary care doctors who are overweight or obese, which is at least 3 out of 4 of us, less than 2% are ever offered any sort of treatment plan for that. So whatever we're doing, it's not enough. But I think, compared to where we were 15 years ago, a lot more is happening. A lot more doctors are getting trained and getting certified by the American Board of Obesity Medicine, for example, so they can incorporate this part of disease treatment into their practice. And so that's good. A lot more of that is happening. And there's more, there's more people doing this stuff today, like what I'm doing, than there ever was. There's not nearly enough. If I go today, for example, in the Raleigh-Durham area, and I want to be a patient at someone else's practice and know that I can get treated with a nutrition plan, a physical activity plan, a behavioral change plan, and then be prescribed medications in the long term to treat this problem, and I would have a real hard time finding somebody who would do that. And so if I'm the only one, my hope is to spur others, in the health community to take up the cause too, to be part of the fight. There needs to be a lot more of that available. And then the public needs to know that it's available, because right now, I see patients all day long, every day in our offices that really, when they first come in, they just weren't aware that such things were really available, and had someone not told them about it, they just didn't know. And we need to be on a societal basis at a point where a lot more people know. So I think that is kind of being addressed. If you're a physician or a nurse practitioner, or a physician assistant, or maybe a nurse or a dietitian, and you want to be part of that, you want to get some continuing medical education and get that ball rolling, I would highly suggest that you consider joining the Obesity Medicine Association, because it is a place where you can meet people just like yourself, professionals just like yourself, just getting in, and they provide all the training that you'll need, and they can guide you along the way. It's a fantastic organization, and it's a good place to get going if you're thinking about doing something like that. And that's how most of us got started. So we get started this way, and I would really encourage you to pursue that. If you're listening to me, or you catch this recording later, and you're in the health field and you want to do something, that would be a good place to start. For the physicians, look, the American Board of Obesity Medicine, if you're already board certified in another specialty, there is a pathway to board certification that allows you to continue to practice the way you are now. There's some educational requirements, some testing that's involved, but then you can get that. And it would be a nice thing to have on your resume and to incorporate it. All right. So I'm Dr. Wickham Simonds, Dr. Simonds Metabolics and Weight Loss. This is the state of obesity. It's a new series that I'm doing, and this is the very first episode. So we're here to talk about obesity because it's dangerous and it's prevalent, and it's confronting all of us here in the United States now. So Dolly, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. At this point, I want to take on the final kind of basic question before we move on over to our special guest and Michelle. And the question is obesity reversible? And my answer is the effects of obesity are in fact reversible. Now, I don't think you can say, well, hey, I'm cured and I don't have to worry about it and I never have to pay attention to it again. In that sense, no, because you're listening to this and you live in the United States, which is all of you as far as I'm aware. You just can't afford to turn your back on this because it can come back on you. It's relapsing. So I treat people all the time and they've got various health problems that have resulted from the disease of obesity, and we can reverse those problems. We can definitely reverse those problems and get you off of medication of all kinds, and get your weight, your body fat down to a much more normal place where it's behaving correctly. And that is something at that point that you still have to always keep a close eye on. You've got to keep a close eye on. It's not something you'll ever be able to just say, well, I'm going to eat whatever I want and do whatever I want. I'm never going to pay attention to that again because that won't work. That won't work. So, all right. At this point, I want to turn to Michelle Kennedy, who is a nurse practitioner in our Raleigh office and appears with me on the Ask Me Anything Facebook Live shows. And she's going to share a guest story with you. One of our patients has agreed to be here, and Michelle is going to have a conversation with him. And this is going to be something that I think that you really need. So, there we go. All right.
All right. A little bit of an echo. Turn the volume down. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And I want to say a special hi to Dolly. Thank you so much for being on tonight. I saw your name. So I am here with Tim. So Tim is a patient in our Raleigh office, and I'm going to let him do most of the talking here. But we have wanted to have Tim on for a very long time because he is quite an inspiration to us and to many other patients that he's referred to us. So I am going to just let Tim kind of highlight, tell me about your story. What's been your journey?
Well, I started seeing Dr. Simon in March of 21. I had tried numerous diets. Every time I went to my doctor, he was telling me that I needed to lose weight. And finally, I got to 264 pounds, which was the most that I'd ever weighed. And I said, I will not hit 265. And a friend referred me to Dr. Simonds, and I'm like, nah, that's a place where a bunch of women go to lose weight. I'm not going to go over there.
Right.
And the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And that was in March of 21. And so we're almost at the 2-year mark. I've lost right at 70 pounds.
Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing. And I heard you say it was a little bit of an internal battle. What was the ultimate impetus that said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and take that plunge and give them a call? Because a lot of people, I think they're on that fence and they're concerned about what that looks like.
For me, it was a matter of my dad, who is 84. He and I always go to the doctor together, and my doctor eventually looked at me and said, he's got diabetes, he's got heart problems, he's got high cholesterol, and you're almost 50, and this is going to be you. So I turned 50 2 days ago. And
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And I am blessed to say that is not me. Matter of fact, I was taking a handful of medication, and within a couple of months of being at Dr. Simonds, all of that medication went in the trash.
Wow.
So I'm completely off medication, and I'm just enjoying the lifestyle. I feel better as far as work. My working involves me getting in and out of cars a lot better.
Mhm.
I mean, getting out of cars a lot.
Mhm.
And with the weight loss, of course, I'm doing that a lot better.
Yeah.
Keeping up with a 17-year-old son,
Ah.
that's going a lot better. Just been able to do a lot of things more than what I was in the past.
Yeah. We call those non-scale victories. I think a lot of folks are so focused on the number and so focused on the scale. It's hard to sometimes realize how many other benefits, like being able to interact with family members and do simple tasks of daily living or chores that maybe before you could do, but it was uncomfortable. Maybe you couldn't do it all, or maybe it's something like sitting comfortably on an airplane or, in a taxi. So I'm glad you highlighted those. I want to talk a little bit about the possibility of facing judgment, because I know that's also a reason that people don't call, or they think, oh, well, it's only for women, or it's only for people who weigh a certain amount, or it's only for people of a certain age. And so they shy away thinking they're going to be judged. And how did that look for you when you did end up calling our practice?
All of those thoughts went through my mind. The idea of actually having to go to a doctor to lose weight. I mean, why do you have to do that? There's millions of ways to do it. For me, I had tried those millions of ways, and they didn't work.
Right.
Or if it did work, it was a temporary weight loss. But with Dr. Simonds, there has been no judgment. I got a lot of support from friends. I got a lot of support from family. And a lot of those friends are actually now patients of Dr. Simonds.
Yes. Tim has referred so many people. I must say, it really is inspiring to see how many people came to us that knew you and said things like, I really didn't want to. I was worried. I was concerned. But Tim made me feel comfortable. And so we're so grateful for patients like you who spread the word and help other people feel comfortable. So anybody watching this, right, that is on the fence or maybe has come and hasn't come back because they're worried about judgment, I would say, give it a try. And what would your advice be to them, having been in that place?
I would say basically, don't worry about what everyone else says. These same people are the ones that are talking about you because you have gained lots of pounds. I would just say stay committed, stay focused, worry about self, and get in there and start losing the weight. Be committed to it and stay on it.
Yeah, and that commitment was something, we talked about
Yes,
before we went
yes,
live, is
yes.
how important that is. And that commitment, it's not something you just switch on and it's easy. It's every day.
Yes.
For the rest of your life,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
This weight loss, the 70 pounds that you've achieved, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not meant to. It's a journey.
That's right.
It's difficult. But what we hope to do is help give you tools
Oh, yes.
and make it a little less difficult,
Very much so.
right? But hang in there. I know some people, they see success stories and they say, well, that must be an anomaly. In our practice, it is not. Right? Tim has done a great job, but we have a lot of patients who have had enormous success. And scale victories, non-scale victories, feeling better, and it looks different ways, and it takes different time. In the comments, I've been off blood pressure meds for 2 months. I monitor it weekly. This is Hope has had success. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We love taking people off medication.
Yes, yes.
And patients like to come off
Yes.
medication, right?
Yeah, extra cash in the pocket.
Exactly, yeah. And what would you say to folks who have had that same thought of either, well, it's too expensive, I should be able to do it on my own, I shouldn't need this help?
If they're like me, a little financial, put your money into it, also gives me a little incentive also to stay on it. Once my money's involved, I have to be successful with my, but it hasn't been, I made calls to my insurance company, I made calls to, my company, making sure everything was good, and it hasn't been expensive at all. That was another thing, if you're going to start losing weight, how much is it going to cost me? These meals are $1 bazillion a month. How much is this going to, and it's not that at all.
Yeah.
And like we were saying earlier, once you're committed, once you're financially committed, and once you have your head right, it's easy, very easy.
Yeah. And that's definitely an important thing is being ready, right? Being mindful and being ready. But I will say, I even have patients who they come in and they say, you know what, it was a rough month. My mind wasn't with it. They still keep their appointments because that accountability piece is so important. So again, if you are apprehensive, if you're thinking, you know, maybe I will, maybe I won't, or maybe I did, but maybe I won't go back, give us a call, right? The judgment-free zone, the success that you could have, reversing of those other chronic conditions, that is absolutely what we're here for. And, you know, given the theme of the AMA today, the state of obesity, a lot of people do need help, and there is no shame, and there is no blame, and there is no judgment. We are absolutely just here to help and help you find the success that Tim has found as well. Tim, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's joining us. We're going to go ahead and go back to Dr. Simonds.
All right. And that was really good. And just like I was saying, you know, well, before I even comment on that, just for those of you who might be joining, thanks for joining. And I'm Dr. Wickham Simonds, and this is the state of obesity, which is a new series that I've started, and there'll be still more coming. And we're about to answer some really cool questions from some of our patients. And look, I just want to comment on some things that Tim said, because kind of the basic foundational questions that I answered a little bit ago before he came on, you know, he talked about losing weight and then all the outworkings of the obesity. He was able to take a bunch of medicine and get off of it and throw it away, he said. And that's what I'm talking about when I say the effects of obesity are reversible, right? But he's actually keeping his eye on the prize, which is keeping that weight off. He related the doctor's visit with his father and just that experience of, hey, this is a picture of where I'm going if I don't do something. See, people who keep that mindset, our patients who keep that mindset, will always have this thing perfectly under control. And that's the mindset I'd like to have all of my patients with. And so we hope that we can kind of motivate you on to be there, because so many of the health problems that we know of in America today stem from this issue of obesity. And when we deal with it, the health problems go away and go into remission. And that's the way to live right there. And that's what, you know, if I can teach you about that, then I've really accomplished something in my career from a public health standpoint. That was a terrific interview by Michelle. And Michelle, for those of you who have not seen her in the Raleigh office, is fantastic. She's really good at this. And I have excellent staff, but Hope's making a comment here. Third time coming, leaving the office, and I came back this third time. I've never had any judgment, and this time I was really ready. All right, and you've been very successful, and that's good. That's exactly what we want. We don't want to create a judgment here. We want to make it easy for you to come back. We're here to help you. I mean, this is a problem, a medical problem that has to be dealt with, and you should never feel like that. Think of any other medical. If you went to your doctor for high blood pressure and you had to go back because it wasn't under control, you wouldn't expect the doctor to judge you, right? We're never going to judge you, and that's the way we approach that. So, anyway, I wanted to, before I move on to the questions, say hi to Charlie. Charlie, thanks for joining. You've joined a lot of our AMAs. It's great. And Susie, who's been part of our AMAs, is here in the studio. She's even won the Target gift card we do on the Monday morning AMAs. For those of you who have not seen one of our AMAs, I'm talking about an Ask Me Anything Facebook Live event that we do every other Monday from the Raleigh office. And this, instead of having it this morning, we're doing this evening. But 2 weeks from today, we'll be doing it again in the morning. And we give away a $25 Target gift card every time that we do it. And Susie has faithfully attended and won that gift card now more than once. So it's pretty cool. And so is Charlie. So I really want to appreciate, to say thank you to both of you for being part of this. I think Hope has another comment. 40 pounds you've lost, you see? And now look, she came back. She said this is her third time, and that's great. No one. I've never met these patients. I mean, patients who lose it one time and then it's just all solved. This sort of patient does not exist. So, Hope, good job at staying with it, because that experience is very normal for folks to have to try several times, lose, gain, and now you're losing. You're really way more mentally prepared, like you talked about, and you're going to do a better job of keeping it off than you've ever done before. So, Akara shares that she. Let me say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Congratulating Hope. That's right. That's right. It's just inspirational stuff. Yeah, it's really good stuff. So, anyway, I want to thank Michelle. Michelle, for those of you who haven't seen her, she's just really fantastic job. She's really qualified, very experienced, and the patients love her, and she does a great job on these shows. She's from Delaware, by the way. I did search the office just for those of you who pay attention to current events. She does not in her possession, my offices, have any documents bearing classified markings. Just letting everybody know she is from Delaware, so I had to get her squared away on that. Now, let's answer some of the specific questions that some of you had and submitted for tonight's show. And these will take a little more time to answer. So Mitchell from Raleigh says, recently in the headlines, I saw that Lucky Charms is considered healthier than eating a steak. Is this true, and how can this be? Well, that is a very good question, Mitchell. How can this be? Okay, I'm going to paint the picture of how this sort of thing happens. And I hope that I can impress upon all of you in my interactions with you to be informed, skeptical consumers, informed, skeptical citizens, because you can say anything. You can call a donkey a whale. I always say it does not make it so, but you can still do this, right? And you can put the power and force of academic institutions, big business, government, any of these sort of things behind your statements. It doesn't make it true. So this came about because the director of nutrition at Tufts University came up with a food scale. And just, I want you to think stoplight. There's the green foods are really good, and there's a score there, and you can have lots of those. And the yellow foods, not as good as the green, but not as bad as the red foods. And so to get a lot of sponsorship for the activities of the institution itself, they solicited a lot of money from food corporations, all right, who then expected their foods to be ranked in the green at the top of the list. And so to me, this is an evidence of conflict. Okay, so the cereal makers got their stuff at the top of the list. The dairy farmers, the cattlemen, the chicken farmers, and so forth, they didn't put any money in this thing, and their stuff's at the bottom of the list. And so I can just tell you, I have never advocated that people eat Lucky Charms. Nothing against Lucky Charms. When you're talking about treating the disease of obesity, Lucky Charms is out. Okay, so that's that would be my initial comment on this. But I think it goes deeper, because this same person chaired a task force meeting at the White House last fall about health and nutrition. And with all of these conflicts. And so now you have a person who, in their academia, I think is conflicted because of the money that they take. And now they have the force of government behind them, even the force of the White House. And the same person then called for redoing the dietary guidelines in this country. I'm just saying, look, and I don't want to single out just because the current administration is Democrat. This happens with Republicans too. There was a prominent Republican today who I read a story about, who is trying to pass federal legislation to make sure that there's chocolate milk in all schools for kids. In other words, pouring a bunch of sugar in milk. And so this is kind of a bipartisan thing that is, you have to actually be an informed, skeptical consumer and citizen and say, wait a minute, just because they're saying that, and news people then turn around and regurgitate it. And they're not really news people. In most cases, they have loyalties too. They have advertisers and so on and so forth. They can't just say the most objective thing sometimes because it offends the people that pay them money. So anyway, it puts the job back on us as the consumer to do what's right for us. And I think that if you asked the practitioners at my office, hey, what kind of diet tends to correct the outworkings of obesity? If you ask Mr. Gupton, who was just here, he's not going to say eating a bunch of kiddie breakfast cereal is the way to go. He's going to say he ate things like steak, and that actually was what, and avoided those sorts of cereals, and that's what fixed the outworkings of his obesity and caused him to lose about 70 pounds that he's keeping on. So I don't think there's you'll see this sort of stuff in time. This is really where our original food pyramid. It is the original food pyramid came out of this sort of flawed stuff, and we didn't used to view things this way, but that kind of got going in the late 70s, and there was a lot of political and business influence on that, and it makes for kind of a nice lesson, I think, that ought to be taught in schools about why you need to be an engaged citizen, because otherwise you could sit there and become a victim of this. And really, that initial food pyramid probably is responsible in a lot of ways for the rapid increase in the rate of obesity and type 2 diabetes. And it happened in a very similar way that this thing is happening now. So please don't fall for the kiddie cereal thing. All right. Charlie says, if you have time, talk about the use of Ozempic today and its impact on the treatment of obesity. Actually, that is one of our questions. And so this is an excellent question. And why don't we just go right to that? And I'll get back to some of these other questions, because this is this question here I wanted to talk about more than any other thing tonight, because we're talking about, hey, there's this disease, obesity, that affects 3 out of 4 people in the United States, essentially. And it has these bad outworkings metabolically and from a physical force standpoint. And there has to be some treatments for this. And there's some common things that you have to do, right? So you have to have a nutrition plan. So we've been talking about not eating cereal as part of that sort of thing, right? Okay. You got to be a physically active person. So nutrition, physical activity, behavioral change. You got to learn to think differently about the things you're going to eat and drink, and then hold yourself accountable. And then you have to, in many cases, I think Mr. Gupton, who told you his story, medicine really helped him. And medicine helps people, and there are medications available to take to treat this disease. So for a long time, these were things that we still use in the office every day. Phentermine, bendimethrazine, diethylpropion, metformin, topiramate. These are things that we're using day in, day out. They're very effective. They're inexpensive. They're safe, and they really work. But there's only a few of them. And as you start talking about, say, high blood pressure, for example, there's 150 different medications on the market today to treat that. So we don't have that many. We do not have that many medications to treat obesity. And something new has come along. And the way to think about it is the hormones you make from your gut when you eat can signal the rest of your gut to slow down and to feel full, and then signal your brain, hey, I'm full, I don't want to eat. And that's where the newer medications are coming in terms of weight loss, right? So the question in this case was Charlie's question about Ozempic. Why are people using, can you explain this Ozempic thing? So anyway, yeah, so he said, talk about the use of Ozempic today and its impact on the treatments for obesity. It's not just Ozempic. Ozempic, the generic name for Ozempic is semaglutide, and the maker is a drug company, Novo Nordisk, which has a very big plant here in Clayton, North Carolina. But Ozempic is also the same thing, semaglutide, as is Wegovy. Semaglutide is the generic name. Ozempic is the form that is approved for the treatment of diabetes, and Wegovy for the treatment of obesity. Bottom line is it is a weekly shot. that makes you feel full and that helps you process glucose and insulin better. When you feel full, you don't eat as much. And this stuff really works. It really makes you feel less hungry. Now, this stuff is really expensive. And so the insurance companies have not, been real wild initially about just paying for this for obesity. And that's an ongoing fight to try to get coverage for that for more and more people. But this is kind of relatively a new thing. Incidentally, there's a limited capacity to manufacture this stuff. And because it's so popular from the weight loss standpoint, it's caused shortages. And right now, the shortages have been met and you're able to get it. There is a competitor product by Eli Lilly, and the name of that product is Mounjaro. If you'll think of Kilimanjaro, just Mounjaro. It is a similar product. It's a weekly injection. Again, in this case, it's 2 gut hormones, not just one. And it's been very successful in the treatment of type 2 diabetes, and it is up for approval for weight loss. And I feel certain it's going to get approved. It's very, very effective for this, as is the Wegovy and the Ozempic. Okay. Now, if you have an abnormal glucose or you have diabetes, I'm almost certain that we can get some of these things approved for you, right? And the copays are low, like $25 a month. I mean, out of pocket, without the insurance coverage, it's like $1,000 a month. So they're really expensive medications that, if your insurance covers it, are fairly cheap. Okay. Now there is the situation where you don't have diabetes and your insurance plan doesn't cover it for weight loss, and we're coming up with some options there, some affordable options there too, which we'll be talking more about. But right now, if you work, if you want to use this stuff for weight loss and you work for the state employee, for the state, you have the state employees health plan, okay? Or if you have the federal Blue Cross plan. If you are a retired state employee, there's one plan for the retirees and for the federal retirees also that would cover this. So if you're interested in adding that to your regimen, we'd like to help you with that, because the medication we already use, like phentermine, which has been around for 63 years this year and is a very, very effective medication. When you combine these medicines, and this is the key point, when you combine these medicines, a combination drug therapy is an absolute home run, and I've never seen anything like it. Okay, so it's something that I think that we got to be a lot more familiar with because it's very, very effective. So, what's with all the new weight loss medications out there? I hear celebrities are all on them. This is a question we're getting right now. Are they available for anyone? Do you need a prescription? This is what I'm talking about. This is what they're doing. They're doing exactly what I just said. Okay, so we're talking about Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro, and I think those things are helpful. I think they are way better when you use them with phentermine or with phentermine and topiramate or phentermine and topiramate metformin. And this is why you want to come see us in the office, because we can help you solve that and figure out the right plan for you. Now, so Makara says she's still going to stick with phentermine, and that's perfectly fine. That's our bread and butter, because that's, to me, the most effective. It has been the most effective medication for 63 straight years now, and nothing's knocked it off. Nothing used by itself has knocked phentermine off that spot as king of the hill. But I do like to combine it with a lot of things. I can't just. I don't know how to express this any other way. This combination drug therapy is great. It is absolutely fantastic. So when we talk about these new medications, the ability to combine them with phentermine means bigger results for you. We've had some really insane type results. I mean, it used to be that I would see people and they take phentermine, for example, and they're going to lose a certain amount of weight and stops. right? And a lot of times it stops at a place that's higher than where they would like it. But when you combine it with the phentermine, with these newer medications, I've seen people just crash through all of those plateaus. And I've even got people I've had to say, look, you got to stop losing weight. And this was something, 17 years, I never ran into this, having to make that statement to anybody. And then now I'm having to make that statement. So it really is, this is something important. And I think it's a reason you want to keep watching these shows that I put out, because I'm going to be talking about these things and you're going to want to know about them. All right, Jennifer, you want to say, hey, Dr. Simonds, will you be working with a compounding pharmacy for Ozempic or Wegovy? Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. Yeah. Within the bounds of what is considered legal. Yes. So anyway, I'm working out the details of all that, Jennifer. If you have insurance coverage for those medications, I want you to get that. That's the cheapest and best way. But if you don't, and or we run into the scenario where people don't, they have coverage, then they lose the coverage, and the medication was really helping them. We want to have an option for those people that's affordable. So I'm getting all of that ironed out for you. And if you'll follow this, show, come see us in the office. We'll have updates for you, availability, and all that sort of thing. Okay. Thanks for the questions. Keep them coming if you got them. And let's go to the next question here. So go back to Laura from Raleigh. Said, you seem to support the keto lifestyle. Why do you think it works? Why does this diet method work for some and not for all? Okay. Well, I think it works because it corrects a lot of those problems that are the outworking of the obesity. Whether it's the diabetes, which is glucose intolerance, whether it's lipid problems, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's inflammatory problems of various kinds. This diet seems to do a really good job of that. And that's why I tend to teach it to people, because it seems to uniformly work, whereas other diets can help you lose weight. They don't necessarily correct all of that in the astounding fashion that a ketogenic diet will. Now, that being said, you've made a good point. You say, well, what about why doesn't it work for all people? Well, nothing works for all people, and we're all wired differently. And I do have patients who do it, and they're not very successful with it. And so we try to find a diet that does work for them and that's going to work for them. And so we're not so locked in that we say you have to do this or you're out. We just happen to have a lot of success treating people with various health problems that have resulted from obesity with this diet, with medication, with behavioral change and physical activity, and it reverses all of their problems in a pretty astounding fashion. And because of that experience, excuse me, we tend to teach that low carb approach. But I am not opposed to working with anybody who wants to do any sort of diet and helping them in this regard and making sure they have medicine if they need it, and going over what we call the metabolic assessment, to just evaluate each person and what it is that changes they might need in their own medical regimen, that sort of thing, that are going to help them. All right. Jennifer says, she's got it. She says, I know if you do, yeah, I know if you do what you tell me, I will lose the weight. Thank you, Jennifer. We're going to help you, and you're going to lose the weight. And I'm excited about that. So I appreciate you attending the show tonight. Really nice that you are doing that and taking time out of your schedule to do it. For those of you who aren't golfers, you may not have paid attention, but they finished the AT&T Pebble Beach Invitational to the Pro-Am Invitational today. It's out at a Monday finish out in California. And Jennifer has two sons who are outstanding golfers and played in college. And so it made me think of them. When I saw some of that today, it was exciting. It was really exciting stuff. And congratulations to the winner, the Englishman, Justin Rose. It's nice to see him back in the winner's circle. I always like it. I can tell you this, he's been working on eating right and exercising. He's talked about that a lot, and I think it's part of why he won today. He's really been taking care of himself. So let's go to Danielle from Durham. He says, aren't genetics a major factor in weight? And if so, how can someone change that for their children down the line? Okay, this is a really good question. So yes, it is. Genetics is a part of weight, and there's some of that stuff you can't control. Just like, say, if your parents had heart disease, all right, you can't change that, okay? But it does, the things you can change that, you know, will probably keep you from having a heart attack is, you know, avoiding the wrong kind of foods, not smoking, making sure you're not sedentary, but instead a regular exerciser. See, there are things that you can control and things you can't. So the fact that there is a genetic history of this doesn't mean you're doomed to all of the outworkings. You can actually change a lot yourself, and that's what I want to impress upon you. And so, but that being said, I also want to, you know, make the point. It's just particularly true from my own standpoint. At some point, I realized, you know, even as a child, wait a minute, I'm not going to be the track star. I wasn't born a track star. On a football team, I was the linebacker, and I was not the wide receiver. It was usually a much thinner guy who was always thin and very quick. And this is the way that that person was born. And I was born different, right? And so, and you look at this in other species, you look at a dog. I mean, I was born the St. Bernard, okay? Somebody else was born the Greyhound. Well, I don't have to revoke my privilege of being a St. Bernard and try to be a Greyhound. You put me on a treadmill if you're a St. Bernard, and I can be on that treadmill all the time. I'm never going to become that Greyhound. So I just kind of say that to say that all shapes and sizes are normal. The question is whether you're healthy, okay? Whether you're a healthy person. And so I don't want you to have to fit into some conformity that the outside world is trying to put on you about your size and your shape and all of that stuff, because we're not supposed to be all the same size and shape like a pencil. This is not the way it's supposed to be. So make sure you're being practical from that standpoint when you talk about genetics. Now, if your family really is very large beyond that, abnormally large beyond that, then everything you're eating, everything you're drinking, your approach to the whole thing needs to be kind of comprehensive, and you can't afford to disassociate your mind from this stuff. You have to pay attention to it. You likely need medication. This is an area where we can really help because it will prevent that weight regain and keep you at a much more normal weight and keep the metabolic dysfunction from happening that I'm talking about, really minimize the physical forces on your musculoskeletal system. Now, you asked a question about your children down the line. This is important because if you're considering getting pregnant, one of the things you can do to really help in terms of your child's weight, not only as a child, but as they grow up, is get to a more desirable weight before you get pregnant. You don't want to be really overweight when you get pregnant. So you want to put some effort into losing weight and getting your BMI down to a more normal range before you get pregnant, because this apparently has a big effect on what kind of genes regarding obesity then express themselves in your child's life. So the heavier you are when you get pregnant, the higher the likelihood that you're passing on genetically a case of obesity to your child. The other thing I want to say is there's this stuff called epigenetics, which is, you know, we used to think that the genetics is something you hand down from parents to children, and epigenetics is the concept that you come into contact with things in your environment that actually change your DNA. And then you can turn around and pass those on to your children. So we're finding that the things that, say, a mother would eat and drink while the child is in the womb can actually have an effect on the child's DNA and turn on these obesity genes. So I think there's been this thought you can just eat and drink whatever you want because you're pregnant. And I would say I would be real careful about that concept. You could actually be doing damage to your child by eating a bunch of junk food, for example, on a regular basis while you're pregnant in large amounts. I tell you, that's not going to happen if you're eating real whole food. You can have all of that you want, okay? And you just can't give in to every single craving you got any more than you can do it in every other area. You have to actually manage those things. And so, anyway, It's a good question. So everything you put in your mouth matters, and there's a lot you can do to manage your own chance of being overweight or obese, even if you had overweight or obese. Okay. Cara's got a question. She says, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting with the casual keto lifestyle? I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting, Makara. It is excellent. Our ancestors did it. There just wasn't a constant food supply. And so our DNA is adapted to that. And so I think it's really good if you periodically pick a period of time during the 24-hour period you're not going to eat, and then have a small eating window. So let's say, for example, you go 18 hours without eating, and then you have a 6-hour eating window. That would be intermittent fasting. This is a very healthy thing, and it's good for you. And when you pair this with the keto lifestyle, you become a trained fat burner. And so it's a lot easier to do this. If you're taking medication further, like phentermine, it's even easier to do it. And so not only will it help your weight go down, but it's really going to improve a lot of medical problems along the way, and markers of inflammation and so forth will correct themselves. Your blood sugar will get better, your pressure will get better, your lipids will get better. This is a very, very good thing. Okay. We got a couple other questions here. Oh, that was a good question, by the way, Cara. Thank you for submitting that. So Spencer from Wake Forest says, depression drives most of my failure for weight loss. Should I consider reevaluating my medications to help weight management? Yeah, this is a great question. So a lot of the medications that we take prescribed by our physicians for other medical problems can make you gain weight. And this would be a reason we really want to see you in our office, so that we can evaluate the medications you're on, determine if you're on what we call weight positive. Those are weight positive medications in many cases. And medications used to treat depression or any other really thing in the psychiatric arena. A lot of those things are very helpful for people, but there are some ones there that are weight positive for sure. And so you get in this scenario where you're trying to lose weight, you're taking something for depression, and the weight just doesn't want to come off, and it's easy to gain, and you are seemingly doing everything right. This is exactly the kind of thing we deal with in our office. And I think, we'd like to really help you with, because we can identify what those medications are, what the alternatives are. And I'm going to tell you something. Taking a medication like phentermine, okay, or like the semaglutide, or like the metformin, or like the topiramate, or even those things in combination, will really, really, really put a dent in that kind of effect that the antidepressants have on keeping you from losing weight, so that you're able to lose weight, maybe not as fast as you want, you're still able to lose weight. And then if we can get that medication changed up to a more weight negative medication, then it actually allows you to lose even faster. So, and this is a really great question. You need to know about that. There are medications like that. So that the ones in the psychiatric arena, any steroid hormones at all. So whether it's birth control, or whether it's prednisone, these are commonly used things we're exposed to that can make you gain weight. And so we can help you identify those things, come up with a strategy to either change them or to really blunt any sort of effects of those. And this is our business, and we'd love to see you in our office and talk to you about that stuff. Okay, so we answered the question that Tina had from Durham about the Ozempic, because Jennifer talked about that. And again, for those of you who missed that, the generic name for Ozempic is semaglutide. The weekly injection. It's a gut hormone that makes you feel full and it helps you process glucose and insulin better. It is effective in treating diabetes, and it's effective in helping you lose weight. It's approved for weight loss under the brand name Wegovy, W-E-G-O-V-Y, Ozempic for diabetes, Wegovy for weight loss. The insurance companies, some of them cover it, some of them don't. We'd like to talk to you about it, because we're working on ways to try to get you on it if you have the insurance that covers it, right? We want you to on something like that, because it makes a very nice addition to the other things that we're doing. And boy, the weight loss in many cases, when you combine a few of those kind of medications together, like phentermine, like metformin, like topiramate, like the Wegovy, the weight loss is astounding. For those of you who don't have the insurance coverage, well, we're trying to work on some affordability options there for you also. And we'll be having exciting news about that. And it's another reason to continue to pay attention to the information that we release in this new series. Look for it. We'll announce it in our emails. It'll be on our website. You don't have to tune in live to the show to get it. It's all there, just like our AMAs are. Every one, and we transcribe them, and the videos are there. So all that information is there for you, so that you don't have to, be live to catch up. Okay, so let's go down to Joan from Raleigh. She has a question. She says, "Isn't age a major reason for weight gain? Can you really avoid gaining weight after a certain age?" Yes, 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 Joan. You can definitely avoid gaining weight after a certain age. It's true. It's easier to gain weight as you age. Okay, this is true. It is also true that I have plenty of patients who are aging and have no problem at all losing weight. So it's something that as we age, for a variety of reasons, our body's changing. We're not quite as active as we used to be. Our hormones aren't the way they used to be. All of these things work to promote weight gain, but adhering to a diet that restricts, these simple carbohydrates, restricts portion sizes to some degree, and that, in a lifestyle where you're more physically active and you put some emphasis on that, if you need medication, we can match you up with medication and those things. We put those together, and it doesn't matter whether you're aging. You can lose weight. I've had patients in their 80s lose a lot of weight. I've had patients in the 70s and 60s, all of them. And I find they're really great dieters. They actually, when you get to be a little bit older, you tend to be more serious about losing weight. That's true. You do, because you're like, well, how many more times am I going to have, right? When you're 20 and 30, you don't think like that. But, you get to be 60 and 70 and 80, you're like, okay, I got to get the job done now. It's time to get the job done and stay on top of this thing. So those are some of the best diet success stories I've ever had in terms of weight loss and really correcting medical problems. So I really love treating this age group. And so, Joan, there's hope, and you're in luck. All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining in and watching the first episode in the state of obesity. It's a new series that I'm doing. There's going to be more coming. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Stay tuned. All right, this has been the state of obesity. More episodes to come. That's the official line I'm supposed to say. We'll have this whole show transcribed into a blog. It's going to be on our website, simonsmetabolics.com. Check it out. Look for further episodes on there, too. Bye-bye, everybody.